This is the Fight for Your Health, the show that teaches you how to master the fine art of living your life on purpose and have a longer, healthier, and happier life through the martial arts lifestyle. The show is hosted by Professor Buitron and his co-host, Grand Master Richard Hackworth. These two experts have combined their efforts and are on a mission to make the world a safer, healthier, and happier place through the martial arts lifestyle. Now, to tell it like it is, here are your hosts.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I'm Richard Hackworth, your co-host here with Professor Buitron, the host of our show, the Fight for Your Health TV show. And today, we're going to help you become better at martial arts in your off time, not just class, but when you're at home too. So Professor Buitron, let's roll right into the topic here of martial arts training aids and tools.
Okay. Martial arts training aids, tools, martial art equipment to train has always existed. Heavy bags, punching bags, wooden dummies, things of that nature, many designs for many, many years. I mean, this goes back to the 1800s. You have different formats of training, of conditioning, and so on and so forth. When do we start conditioning? When do we start training? When do we step up the level? Well, after you learn your basics, okay? Because martial arts, like everything else, it's habits. And people say, well, I have a goal, okay? And the goal is for me to be a black belt or silver glove of Savate, or black belt of Kempo, or black belt of Taekwondo, or black belt in Judo. Okay, well, that's your goal. What are your habits? Because without habits, you're not going to achieve a goal. And you need to produce good habits. And that's when we start understanding where it comes in. Because habits in any style, you have good habits and you have bad habits. And I'm going to put that into a technical aspect of it. What are good habits? That you don't telegraph a punch, you don't telegraph a kick. What are bad habits? Telegraphing a punch, telegraphing a kick, telegraphing a movement. Now, why am I saying that? Because everybody's enthusiastic when they join martial arts. The first 30 days, the first thing I get is, I want to buy a heavy bag and hang it in my garage. I'm going to buy this and hang it in my garage. I'm going to buy, and all that is fine and dandy. I'm not stopping anybody. But let me put it to you this way. You're in class, most classes 3 times a week for 2 hours, at 6 hours. But 4 days out of the week, you're not there in class. So if you're 4 days a week, you're out there hitting the bag, and you're telegraphing a kick, or telegraphing a punch, or wailing a punch, or dropping your hands, and somebody's not correcting you, guess what you're building? Bad habits. So every time you go back into school, you come with those bad habits that you were learning and gaining momentum when you were at your house. So guess what happens to enthusiasm when your instructor tells you, raise your hand, quit telegraphing, quit wailing the punch, start putting them in there. You lower your sense of confidence and say, well, I'm not learning any. I'm hitting the bag great. I'd rather just go hit the bag. And that's not the motivation that you want. What you want is gain good habits. And once you have the good habits and basics, then you can go hit the bag and continue going forward, and so on and so forth. So I'm not against heavy bags. I'm against building bad habits. Yep.
Well, I like the fact that you can do martial arts in many ways. And one of the things that I don't know how many of our viewers know, but you are a published author. You have books on martial arts that are available. And some of my early teachers had also written books about martial arts. So I know that if my teacher did something, there was a reason. And that I bought those books. And I found that reading those lessons also enhanced my training and my knowledge, as well as doing it physically in class. because a lot of times teachers will remember to put things down in writing that maybe they don't mention that often. So you're going to pick up some really important golden nuggets of information about, how to do something correctly or fight strategy and things like that from the book that you might not have heard in class before, because that was something that he wrote down years ago, and maybe it's not at the front of his thinking anymore. But if there are books by your instructors, you need to get them. I guarantee you're going to find it very beneficial. Or about your style. I think that, like for me, for Taekwondo, there are literally hundreds of Taekwondo books, but I've narrowed it down to about 7 that are worth owning, and I own all 7. And so I think that people that make an honest effort for their own education in the martial arts should look for those books on their style or their system and value them. Take the time to read them, highlight sections, make notes in the just like you're studying for college, because what you're studying from that book, enhanced by what you're physically doing in class, could someday save your life or the life of the people that you are in charge of protecting, your children, your wives, your family, your husbands, whatever the case may be. And so it's important that we take time to wrap ourselves around these books and do our due diligence and research. And then the other thing is about the drills that they're learning in class. Absolutely, they need to be doing those at home as well, because if they're not receiving the conditioning from it because it's limited class time, they need to do it extra to train those attributes. And I know that in an interview that I saw, Muhammad Ali talked about that the speed bag and shadow boxing were 2 of the things that he attributed to his success as a world heavyweight champion. So we can't discount those things in our martial arts. If you're in Kempo, do your forms, because that's a form of shadow boxing. That's an imaginary fight using your techniques. And the same thing with the other arts. So when those things come up, by all means, make sure you're doing them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You made some excellent points. You made some excellent points about books. You made an excellent points about forms, about shadow boxing, and all that comes in time. It's not discouraged. I actually tell people you don't just train in the school, you train abroad. There's other things you can do. There's other things that you can start training your mind to. There's other things that you can gain knowledge with. It's the worst thing that I see with instructors nowadays is they do not know the history of their own art. A lot of instructors out there, you tell them, whatever, I'm going to take Savate. I go, where did Savate come from? Oh, it's French. Yeah, but who, what, when, where? Understand what I'm saying? It's
Yes.
they don't know the history of it. They do not know the cultural aspects of it. Everything has become, all these assumptions have been built around not only Savate, other martial arts, all these speculations in history that are out there and taught, and they're taken taken as gospel. And people need to start educating themselves. Number one, educate yourself on the art that you're training in. Number one. Second, on the forms in shadow boxing, that's a great analogy because it's the same thing. You're shadow boxing, you're doing your forms in Kempo. Why do you do the forms in Kempo are built around the techniques of especially American Kempo. They're built around the techniques that were taught before you get to that level to be taught that form. And it's taught for a reason, for you to remember those techniques and for you to understand them in motion. And also those forms also teach you the escapes of those techniques if they're done towards you. And a lot of people don't understand that. And you have to understand the actual movement, the foot placing, how you're doing the torque and everything else in the body. It's not just doing it fast. So you can practice it all the time, and that is very much encouraged. But you'll every so often you have to come back to the watchful eye of your instructor and say, correct me if I'm wrong. And that's when growth starts going. Start hitting the bag at home. Yes, please do so. But also hit the bag in front of your instructor for him to correct you if you're doing something wrong. And that's when growth starts coming in. Because number one, you're learning from a person that's been there before you, is doing that for you, and is taking his time to teach you the correct way of hitting, the correct way of moving, the correct way balancing yourself, and all those nuances that come to that. Don't just ignore that fact and watch a YouTube a video of somebody and just go out there and just start hitting something that has nothing to do with it because you think it's cool, or you think that by hitting harder you're doing better. And so understand those two different things. They're needed. They're training aids. They're training equipment. They were designed for that. But understand, let's gain first the basics, and understand those, and go out there and build good habits upon them. Don't go out there and ruin them with building a bad habit.
Well, real quick, I'd like to jump back to the topic of books. I remember the first book that I bought was called What is Karate? And I think it's still available today. But any of our viewers that are watching, drop in the comments the name of the first martial arts book that you ever bought, or maybe what your favorite martial arts book is. And then I have a personal question for you, Professor, is what inspired you to begin writing the books? Because it's a lot of work. I know I've written a book and it is a ton of work. Why would you put yourself through that anguish?
There was only two books that were written about Savat, and you couldn't find them. You can find them. One was Richard McGregor from England. He wrote. They went and competed against the French team back in the 80s, and they wrote a small book. It was about 180 pages. They had some definitions of some kicks. It was fairly done. And the other one was Bruce Tegner. He did a book of Savant, as well as he did a bunch of different books. But you couldn't find them. So people were asking, what's the history? What's this? What's that? And I had a student of mine that was a professor who was always in college, who was always asking about uh, what is this? What is that? And he'll make down notes, and he goes, I want you to write a book. And I was very reluctant to it. So, but I did it, and I did it in a way, we did it fast, and we did it in a way that we can get our students to understand their history of what they were coming from, where it had come from, what it had happened. And we did the definitions of all the pedagogy of Dancer Savat from Blue Glove all the way up to Professor on the techniques. We didn't show them, but we put the definition of the how to, you know, this is for this attack and this is for that. So we had that documented in there for people to kind of analyze that. That was back in 1995. That book
Was that the first book that you wrote?
Yeah, the Encyclopedia of Dance Through Savant. I've written 14. And so that book was, in the publisher of that book, I remember going through several publishers, and the publisher says, but they don't, we really wanted small. It was a book that had about 600 pages. Um, we really wanted small. Nobody knows what Savant is. So him being a professor, we ended up finding a university that had their own publishing company for professors that published their own books for the colleges and universities, and we went that route. So we did it under the one of the universities that did the publishing for all the professors that would bring in their books for their classes. Okay, and it was a hardbound book. We must have sold about 3,000, and I remember the Russian Federation. They bought about 500 of them for their people out there, and that was back in the 90s. And then my next book really didn't come of age until we started in 2000, and there were all manuals on the different glove rankings from blue to silver. That's 6, and then we had coach and each other. That's 7, 8. So 8, 7, 8 of not only more elaboration of history, more elaboration of the techniques and the pedagogy for each of the glove ranks of Savat. And that was basically just sold to our internal students. I mean, they were out there. I was teaching in the college at the time, so I taught for many years. So the blue glove and the green glove manuals were basically sold to the students in college. At one time, we used to sell them through Amazon. We found out that Amazon basically took more of your money than what you were making, and it came to the point that it was not no longer cost effective. We were just basically, we ended up paying for the shipping instead of getting paid for anything else. And I said no, it's so we left Amazon at that time. We did a history book on the knives of South Texas, the knife fighting of South Texas, the roots in the Lone Star, and that one you can we got it reprinted again now, so that one's there. Um, as we go down the line, I did a history book on Savat again, and there was a lot more books, a lot more findings, a lot more conversations with other professors, professors that are no longer with us. Um, just kind of documenting everything that happened with Savat. There was not much stuff said or done beforehand. So what I used to do is talk to the older professors that are no longer with us, and I would put the stories, not compile them together, but if this professor A would tell me a story of an older professor of the 1800s, and this other professor would tell me the same story, then I said this. Then there's something in correlation. So I was doing more of an investigating writing more than anything else, you know. And that basically, when you're documenting all that, that's basically what you have to do, because you're basically documenting certain things that were never documented. And that's what happened with Savant. A lot of the history was taught orally. It was not taught written. There was a lot of manuals in the 1800s. Every professor had one, but they never talked about the history. They talked about maybe a couple of things, a paragraph or two about the history, or maybe about another professor, or about a fight that happened that year. But basically, they were talking about their methods of what they taught in their school. So everybody had a method back then. It was kind of put together after World War II, kind of everybody consolidated. And so in those books, you're not going to find that much history. You might find so and so died in World War One, so and so died in the Crimean War, so and so led was teaching in Tonkin before Vietnam was even Vietnam. You know, so you just get a sentence or of that, or my student went to Brazil to teach a police this to fight against capoeira. You have two sentences on that. That's the only thing you know about it. So all that has to be kind of documented and put together. So that was a history book. Then I was pushed and I was told by everybody, please do one that shows the actual techniques moving. You know, what this technique, because we have sets and so on, what this set is. So we did that. And that compendium, probably about 1,000 pages. It's a big book. And unfortunately, with COVID, the publishing company lost all the manuals and everything that went through. And right now we're trying to bring that back, because that was a beautiful book that's out there. So we don't have that right
So they lost the master set?
now. Yep.
Oh, wow. Now, for those that are interested, how the books that you have that are available, how would somebody get those? Can you leave a link in the video description for them to click on and find them, or?
Sure, you can email me at buitronacademy2012@gmail.com, and I'll forward some of the books to you if you all need them. There's several that are out there. The last book that we did was The Noble Art of French Pugilism, and that talks about all the professors that were alive, and I gathered their information and I documented their information back in 2012, which we did a documentary on. And that documentary is on YouTube. It's free. People can look it in there, but you all have to click on the top for it to switch it over from French to English, translated on the subtitles, because the majority of everything is French. So, you know, if people are interested in that, I'll put a link at the end of the video for the documentary.
Well, that's very exciting about to hear about the documentary and the books, and especially that some of them are available for our viewers. If you've watched this far, go ahead and click the subscribe button so that you can see us again next time. And we'll be back again soon with some more hot topics. If you have a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, make sure to drop it in the comments below. We always love to hear from you. And I'm Richard Hackworth. Thank you for watching. Professor Buitron, if you could lead us out.
Folks, just stay safe, be safe. It's, we're in July, and school's around the corner. If you're a martial artist, get back into enrollment. If you're a father or mother listening to this, enroll your child in a martial arts school, because there's a lot of things that martial arts teach our kids. Number one, it's to fight against peer pressure more than anything else. And I think that is the most helpful unit in the martial art to give, besides self-confidence and all the rest of the stuff, is for us to learn how to fight against peer pressure. And that is something that many kids, unfortunately, don't know how to do that, and they're led astray. And we know what happens after that. Until next time, much peace. You all stay safe.